Speaking of the Windy City, Chicago, we're going to talk about our favorite isomer, Delta-8. And the headline for my article today is Delta-8 and other mind-altering hemp products would be tightly restricted in Chicago under new proposal. The substances exploded in popularity after federal law unintentionally allowed businesses to sell the weed-like substances without regulations. And this comes from the Chicago Sun-Times. A city council proposal would dramatically limit the sale of Delta-8 and other intoxicating hemp-derived products that exploded in popularity after federal law unintentionally allowed businesses to sell the weed-like substances without any regulations. Second Ward Alderman Brian Hopkins says he plans to introduce an ordinance at Thursday's city council meeting, that would be yesterday, to address a public health crisis that has emerged as the sales of the trendy substances has ramped up. We have to act immediately, and this problem has fairly clear consequences of steps that need to be taken, said Hopkins, chairman of the council's Public Safety Committee. These are businesses. They're not drug dealers. They can't hide in the shadows. They're storefronts, and it's happening in plain sight. The federal farm bill in 2018 legalized the distribution and sale of hemp and its derivatives, but banned products that contained more than a minuscule amount of Delta-9 THC, a component in weed that gets users stoned. The law, however, didn't account for the galaxy of mind-altering substances like Delta-8 THC that can be produced from hemp, opening the door to a lucrative market with little to no oversight. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration has since labeled synthetic hemp-derived products as controlled substances, but the determination hasn't stopped the nascent industry from growing. Hopkins's proposal comes amid continued alarms about the psychoactive substances which can be found in stores and dining establishments across Chicago, but do not face the same testing and label requirements as legal weed. Hopkins points out to report the contaminants, even fentanyl, being found in certain products, adding that young people have been sickened after ingesting these items purchased from unregulated stores. In one case, 5 students from at Uplift Community High School in Uptown were reported hospitalized after consuming unregulated edibles from a nearby smoke shop. Months later, federal authorities ordered some Delta-8 manufacturers to stop using packaging that closely resembles Cheetos, candies, and other favorite snacks of kids. Under Hopkins' plans, only state-licensed marijuana businesses could sell THC products in Chicago. That includes synthetic cannabinoids like Delta-8, Delta-10, THCO, a powerful substance that was once studied by military researchers as a potential non-lethal incapacitating agent. Other businesses could only stock hemp-based offerings with negligible amounts of Delta-9 THC that correspond with the Farm Bill. They also couldn't call themselves dispensaries, advertise the sale of THC, or use iconography commonly associated with weed like images of the cannabis plant. Businesses across the city would be affected by the proposed changes. Some of the are already flouting the law by marketing themselves as cannabis dispensaries. The type of operations that would sell these products tend to be shady operations, Hopkins said. If you're running a convenience store like a mom and pop store, and all of a sudden you decide, I'm going to sell these THC products, well, that's a statement about your intentions. Do you want to be a good neighbor or not? You might be near a school, he added. There's no regulations like there is with dispensaries to keep them away from schools and parks. Each violation of the ordinance would result of a fine up to $5,000 and could result in a suspension or revocation of an establishment's issued city business license. Chicago police could also seize products under the proposal. When Illinois lawmakers lifted the state's prohibition on pot in 2020, they promised to diversify the white-dominated industry and to use tax dollars from cannabis sales to address the harms of the drug war that disproportionately affected people of color. Years later, many so-called social equity applicants who earn licenses and have struggled to secure financing and meet the state's strict requirements to open. Meanwhile, those selling hemp-derived products are able to undercut the hefty prices found in licensed dispensaries while facing few roadblocks or safety standards. Ryan McLaughlin, a spokesperson from the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois, said the concerning trend gives consumers a false sense of security in what they are buying and consuming. The regulated cannabis program in Illinois was created to protect the public by closely controlling the manufacturing and sale of all THC products, McLaughlin said. We support Alderman Hopkins in his efforts to reestablish some of the safeguards as controls have clearly gone astray. Efforts to regulate alternative cannabinoids like Delta-8 have fallen short in Springfield, although many other states have taken similar measures and have prohibited hemp-based products. In May, the most recent push faced opposition from the cannabis industry advocates calling for a full ban. State Representative LaShawn Ford, a Chicago Democrat, sponsored that bill, and now he's drafting a measure that creates a regulatory structure identical to the legal weed business. It would notably limit sales to people over 21 and create rigorous testing and labeling requirements and impose a new tax on these hemp-derived products. Ford argued that Hopkins' proposal would shut down businesses and that people would be put out of work and create an underground market for products like Delta-8 and other intoxicating hemp cannabinoids. The city of Chicago should not be banning or eliminating tax revenue, he said in response to Hopkins' proposal. They are right in the situation they need to be as getting as much revenue as possible. My goal is to regulate it and to make it safe. Charles Wu, owner of Chi Tiva locations in Wicker Park and southwest suburban Worth, said he and other hemp sellers are already working with Ford to create new standards. There is a statewide initiative by hemp companies to submit to regulation, to be responsible, to test, to be taxed, and to expand the market, Wu said. From my perspective, this ordinance is an effort to divert the attention from the regulatory language that's being drafted. He sees large weed firms are pushing to ban sales at unlicensed stores to snuff out their new competition. They are trying to come up with public safety issues, he said. Our perspective is it's business. It's a money grab on their side, and they're trying to demonize us on our front. Wu insisted that his products are tested, properly packaged, labeled, with a code that customers can scan by cell phone to learn about what they're buying. He also acknowledged that he's competing with bad actors who flout the rules. Should the ordinance pass, Wu said he'd be forced to lay off staff and rely solely on Chi Tiva's cafes. This is their chance to crush the 1,000 or so hemp businesses that are out there, he said, referring to the cannabis companies. Because if they take us out, the customers either have to go back to the legacy market or they have to go to those companies and buy their stuff. They just don't want legitimate competition. And that's my story. Dr. Mark Sheldon from the shores of Lake Champlain in the beautiful state of Vermont. I'd love to hear what you all have to say. Thank you very much.
Man, Rico, Chicago, they about to go down. They about to go hard on
all that Delta-8.
They're going to go do a roundup on all the head shops. I think they're going to show New York what they're supposed to be doing as far as for enforcement.
Yeah, Delta-8 ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to add my 2 cents about the earlier discussion about moving to Schedule 3. Yeah, all, so you're right. The FDA is a monomolecular medicine
Mm-hmm.
format. That's how they approve things. In order for a cannabis facility to be an FDA registered facility, it would really need to establish the rules. It's just not about GMP, but it's all about, well, there's so many things that come into play there. And so I think what they're going to do is if they push this into Schedule 3, what do Schedule 3 FDA registered facilities make? They make synthetics. So you know what we're going to get? We're going to get a bunch of synthetic THC because as I've pointed out on this show several other times, it is cheaper to synthetically make THC than it is to extract it from cannabis plants. These people know this, and they'd probably start with the readily abundant CBD isolate made available by the Farm Bill, chemically convert it into THC, and put it into products XYZ. Is exactly what you're going to get if they move this thing into Schedule 3. They're going to take away the artisan quality of live resin and the connection between the farmer and a full spectrum product, which is really flies in the face of everything that the FDA does because there's no such thing as a full spectrum FDA product, right?
Exactly.
That's Dr. Mark with his opinion. Thanks.
Hey, Mark, there's one other point of this on this Schedule 3 thing I think is something important that I haven't really heard a lot of people bring up yet. But in order to have a FDA approved facility, none of these social equity applicants will be able to qualify because you can't be a former felon and be able to get registered under the FDA. So how's that going to work?
They're going to grow the plant on their farm and sell it like they're doing today.
These people don't have farms, Dr. T, that are social equity applicants.
Sorry, indoor growth.
Oh, there we go.
Warehouse.
Mendocino and other agrarian environments.
Knowledge base.
What's
Can
that?
I also remind us that Schedule 3 requires a prescription?
Yep.
Also,
yes, it does.
There's nothing normal about this, and thank you, Dr. Mark, for pointing that out. One thing that caught me when you said that it was cheaper, the farm in Mississippi.
The University of Mississippi.
University of Mississippi. Well, so he actually he's the one that got THC and Marinol dropped to Schedule 3, and what he was trying to do was get naturally derived THC dropped to Schedule 3 because it was cheaper to grow it than create it. But that was before the hemp bill, and the hemp bill, I have to agree with you, that is what makes it cheaper and now just chemically convert it. And
right. So Marinol is what a chemist would call a racemic mixture. So, there's a certain handedness or chirality to these molecules. And so Marinol is a 1-to-1 mixture of both the left and right hand isomers. So only one of those isomers is naturally occurring. And I'm sure what El Soli was referring to, which is if you're just going to make the natural THC isomer Delta-9 THC, it is going to be cheaper to get it from cannabis because, synthesis is never the solution if you can get it from a plant-derived thing. And again, Dale, if the cannabis plant teaches us anything, it teaches us that it's not just about THC. There's this whole entourage effect of everything else that's in there, and you don't fuck with it. You just take it for what it's worth.
Yep.
You extract it. The FDA does indeed need a new mechanism to be able to approve plant-derived medicines like cannabis. And it just doesn't fit in. It doesn't fit in like caffeine, or it doesn't fit into the watch the evening news and you'll see that it's brought to you by the U.S. pharmaceutical companies, which play these wonderful commercials of family life down at the beach. And, it's all about taking some
cannabis illegal for years. And so,
and it's about taking some drug. Dr. Talleyrand will tell you that only has marginal efficacy in the clinic, but they can make a whole bunch of money on because they have the patent on the thing. The thing with cannabis is you can't patent it. And when you could grow your own medicine, who's going to buy drugs at the drugstore using their drug insurance, right? No, nobody.
I've just joined your
Protect
fan
the small
club.
form. Yeah. I just have to say there is an example out there of FDA controlled atorvastatin or Lipitor, which is a cholesterol lowering agent, and that you can also get a similar chemical through red rice yeast, which has the similar chemical that lowers cholesterol also. So there are examples of plants competing with pharma, and cannabis is just going to have to be that example. I think we are way ahead in terms of red rice yeast versus atorvastatin. Cannabis is way ahead in the public, so I think we have a good chance with the plant.
Well, I always laugh when I watch that commercial for Prevagen, that thing that they claim came out of jellyfish and makes old people remember shit. I'm like, this is such bullshit. First of all, anything that they take from jellyfish in terms of like a protein, as soon as you put it into the gut, guess what happens to a protein in the acidity of the gut? It gets chopped up into the amino acids it came from. So there's no efficacy to that whatsoever. But they have a really nice commercial, and I'm sure they sell $1 billion worth of this supplement that comes from jellyfish that doesn't work at all.
You should take your
man.
aminos. That is
we are
a
out of
fact.
time.
Yes,
Guys,
yes,
out of
we
time.
got